Alright, yeah, everybody can get this. Yeah, it'll be all off everybody.
Good evening. My name is Jessica, and this is my last and final speech for public speaking. Imagine the desperation and courage it takes to cut your own arm off. Imagine the type of situation that is so severe that the only option you have is to perform amputation on yourself with no training, pain suppressant, or proper tools. I think it's hard to know whether or not you are truly capable of such a feat until put in the situation. Today, I would like you to join me in paying tribute to Aaron Ralston, an outdoorsman and mountaineer, for his strength and determination. For those of you who may not know, Aaron Ralston was the 27-year-old hiker who became trapped in a canyon when his arm was wedged between a boulder and the canyon walls. Recently, a movie was made called 127 Hours, where James Franco played the role of Ralston. Aaron Ralston showed his strength not only physically by hiking the many miles out to the canyon and back, but also mentally by keeping himself alive and sane with less than a liter of water and only 2 burritos for 5.5 days. On April 26, 2003, Aaron first rode his bike 15 miles to the Blue John Canyon trailhead in Utah, where he locked his bike to a tree and began the 5-mile hike to the Blue John Canyon. Ralston, not thinking anything of it, told nobody where he was going or what he would be doing. He had hiked solo on terrain much more challenging and considered this merely a warm-up for an upcoming ascent of North America's highest mountain, Mount McKinley. So he saw no danger in not notifying anyone of his whereabouts. According to the Los Angeles Times, Ralston had been hiking for about an hour when he came across an 800-pound boulder wedged between the canyon walls. As Ralston attempted to maneuver over the boulder, it shifted, causing him and the boulder to fall, trapping his right arm against the 800-pound boulder and canyon walls. In an interview with CBS News, Ralston described his experience as, quote, kind of like being stuck in the bottom of a well, essentially, but in the middle of a very remote wilderness. After being trapped for about an hour, Aaron began weighing his options in regards to moving the boulder and freeing his arm. He saw 4 possible plans of action. First, he thought maybe another hiker would come along, find him, and rescue him. Second, he could use his ropes and climbing equipment to somehow move the boulder. Third, he could use his pocket knife to chip away at the boulder and free his arm. And fourth, to amputate his own arm. He knew that the fifth possibility was suicide, but he did not want to consider that. Shortly after he began trying to move the boulder himself, he realized that it was far too heavy and realized if he were to move it, it would take some mechanical help. That's when he rigged up a hoist system using the climbing rope and carabiners he brought with him. He then came to the realization that moving the boulder would require far more resources than he had available. Upon that realization, moving the boulder would require. He began slowly chipping away at the boulder, hoping that if he could chip away enough of the boulder, he could remove his arm. After several days and several attempts and no success, the severity of the situation set in. Despite rationing it, after just about 3 days, he ran out of both food and water. Thinking ahead and not knowing how long he would be stuck, Ralston began saving his own urine by peeing into his camel pack. Ralston was aware that temperatures dropped down below freezing at nightfall, but had no intentions of being out past sunset, so he did not bring any clothing fit for sub-freezing temperatures. Desperate to keep warm as best he could by any means necessary, Ralston used his ropes to wrap his legs and to act as pant legs. Ralston knew his only chance of survival would be to amputate his own arm. However, the only knife he had with him was not only cheap, but dull from chipping away at the boulder. In an interview with Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Ralston described the knife as, quote, what you'd get if you bought a $15 flashlight and got a free multi-use tool. Aaron Ralston showed his determination by desperately trying to free his arm that was trapped in between a boulder and the canyon wall. On Thursday morning, Aaron's 5th day of being trapped, he decided he had to amputate his arm, below the elbow and must do so before he lacked the strength. With the knife being so dull, Aaron knew he wouldn't be able to cut through the bone, so he broke both of the bones in his arm and then cut through the tissues. After making his way through all the muscle, tissue, and nerves, Aaron was finally free. He used a small first aid kit he had in his backpack to bandage the wound and used the camelback to act as a sling to hold up his arm. Though dehydrated, delirious, and bleeding heavily, Ralston managed to rappel 60 feet to the bottom of the canyon using one arm and walked 7 miles before he came across a family out hiking who had been warned of the missing hiker. In an article on the website climbutah.com, the family who first encountered Ralston reported that he spoke very clearly when he said, quote, "Hello, my name is Aaron. I fell off a cliff on Saturday and was stuck under a boulder. I just cut off my hand 4 hours ago and I need medical attention. I need a helicopter." Shortly after Ralston's encounter with the family, he was rescued by a search helicopter that the wife and son signaled down. Also, according to climbutah.com, Ralston was about a mile from his truck when he was rescued by the helicopter. Once they arrived at the emergency room, Ralston walked himself into the hospital where he pointed to a map and told the doctors where he had been trapped. According to wikipedia.com, in 2005, Ralston became the first person to climb all 53 of Colorado's mountains over 14,000 feet elevation, solo in the winter, a project he started in 1997 and resumed after his amputation at Blue John Canyon. In conclusion, without the utmost strength and determination, Aaron Ralston's story would surely have had a drastically different ending. By keeping a cool head and never giving up hope, Aaron maintained a type of positive attitude necessary to survive a situation of that nature. Thank you and have a good evening.